Marsha Blackburn is the senator from Tennessee. I think she's probably one of the more important Republican senators because she's a big supporter of Trump. And she gave an interview on Fox yesterday, and I wanted to go over it and give my commentary.
So while the Democrats gather in Chicago, the Trump-Vance campaign will make stops in multiple battleground states this week. Let's bring in Republican Senator Marsha Blackburn from Tennessee. You have seen the surge that Kamala Harris has made in the polls since she became the de facto nominee. What do you think is going on, and can the former president blunt that surge?
Oh, John, I think the more the American people get to know about her, the less they're going to like her policies. And that is what this election is going to be about. When you look at her being the deciding vote on the Inflation Reduction Act and the American Recovery Act, when you look at the fact that she never even actually went to the border, she went near the border. She didn't call the Border Patrol chiefs. She is for allowing illegals to vote. She is for doing away with private health insurance and doing the Medicaid for All program. She is for defunding ICE. She has all of these policies that are outside the American mainstream. And as people begin to realize what she is for, then they're going to change their opinion of her and as they get to know what she stands for.
But
she has been voted the most liberal senator in the U.S. Senate. That was in 2019. At that time, I was voted the most conservative, so she was really the 180 from me.
But as you know, she hasn't had a news conference since she became the de facto nominee. If nobody is allowed to ask her those questions about her positions on some of these issues, and if she just is able to get up on stage and, spout campaign themes or recite a stump speech, will people ever find out what she really believes?
Oh, I think they will. And just as you mentioned, President Trump and Senator Vance are going to be across the country this week. I'm going to be across Tennessee and also in a couple of other states campaigning and making certain that people know what her policies are and to know that she's for defunding the police, that she has been soft on crime, knowing where she stands on the Green New Deal. She was a co-sponsor of that. Knowing what her voting record was when she was in the Senate and understanding how little she has done as vice president. She has all of these great ideas, but John, she has had over 1,300 days to enact those ideas, but has chosen not to do so.
When asked who could better handle immigration and the situation at the southern border, in our Fox News polling, voters say Trump does better by 14 points, 56 to 42 over Kamala Harris. Senator Mark Kelly, of course, comes from a border state. He was one of the people who was in the running to be her vice president, we're told. He says that she understands the issues on the border. Listen to your fellow senator.
Yeah, she does, absolutely. And I think when we talk about some of the Democrats in the United States Senate that weren't really getting it in 2022, now they get it. And that's why we were going to be able to provide, I think the plan was we were going to provide about 40 votes, the Republicans about 20. We would get the legislation passed, and then we could move on to some of the other stuff that Vice President Harris has talked about, which is comprehensive immigration reform.
He was, of course, referring to that so-called bipartisan border or immigration reform bill. So Democrats, he says, didn't understand the seriousness of the situation in 2022, but now they do. What do you make of that?
I think that the Democrats chose not to understand the seriousness of this situation, and they have wanted to say it was not a big issue. And now that the top two issues are the economy and the border, and the Biden-Harris border policy has been an open border. When you look at the fact that under President Trump, we had the most secure border that we had had in years. And John, now 10 million people that have come across that border, people from over 150 different countries coming in here. You look at the tens of thousands of Chinese, the number of known terrorists, even last week, admitting that 99 known terrorists had been released in the country this year. And you look at these numbers and you look at the gangs and the crime in communities all across this country. Every town's a border town. Every state's a border state. You look at the death by fentanyl, the crimes carried out against women and children by some of these criminal illegal aliens. And the American people understand this issue much more than my Democratic colleagues have understood this issue. And now they're having to say, let's do something about it because it's election time. And that and the economy are the top two issues.
Very quickly, I want to play some sound from New Hampshire Governor Chris Sununu. Listen to this.
She was able to kind of establish this resurgence, and her team has done a very good job of kind of avoiding the issues, trying to make people believe that she hasn't been there for 4 years, and they've done a very good job of that, at the same time kind of capitalizing on Trump's reaction, right? They knew that the former president can be a very reactionary person. Almost any other Republican candidate would be winning this race by 10 points, and so the message is very clear. If you stick to the issues, if you stick to what matters, this should be an easy race for Donald Trump.
He says that it's tougher for the former president to beat Kamala Harris than Joe Biden. You agree?
As people look at Kamala Harris's policies and as they get to know her and as they look at this chaotic Democrat National Convention that is going to take place this week, what they are going to see is policies that are so far outside of the mainstream of what they believe and what they are hoping for their families. You know, John, people are tired of being broke, and they want to see this economy put back on a firm footing. And because of this economy and immigration issues, a lot of these voters are going to move to supporting President Trump and Senator Vance.
All right. Republican Senator Marsha Blackburn of Tennessee.
You know, one thing Republicans will always have over Democrats is that a lot of these campaign surrogates and people who aren't necessarily the guy, right, like the president or whoever is the top person, leader within the party at the time. One thing that Republicans always have over Democrats is that their surrogates are really good at taking something and, whether it's true or not, just repeating it, you know, and sometimes do it like rapid fire, like so quick. I mean, Blackburn, that at the beginning of that clip, just spouted off so many different things. I had to write some of them down just so I'd make sure I didn't forget which ones to go over. She claims that Harris wants illegals to vote. I've never once seen anything from Harris indicating that she supports illegal immigrants voting. She said that Harris is for the Medicaid for All program. And by the way, that's even more comedic, for one, because Blackburn's like most Republicans, again, when they attack single payer healthcare, at least get Sanders' version of it correct, right? Medicare for All. As far as I can tell, she's the first person to screw up the way of the proper way of referring to it, which is minor criticism, whatever. But Harris's healthcare journey is interesting. She supported single payer, right, Medicare for All, when Sanders unveiled it back in, I think it was like 2017. And then when she was running for president, she introduced what she called her improved plan, which was supposed to be some keeper of public and private insurance that would gradually get Americans to Medicare for All in a 10-year period. You know, just something that was kind of like in the middle, that a lot of people, myself included, did not like, thought she was waffling on. You know, I mean, it's goofy to me that you would even propose doing something in 10 years when you should already know as an adult that if you're getting if you're lucky enough to get 2 terms as president, your party's probably not going to hold on to the White House for 10 years, which means what if that time period is still too long to ensure it's actually going to be seen through. But whatever, that's so that's just more proof of like Harris, waffling on an issue, but we can say pretty definitively she's not for single payer, or at least, the version that Sanders had. Maybe she supports a public option. That's why I said her views are not as well defined as these people would like to make it sound. The part about her defunding ICE is hilarious. I mean, and we get to the part where they play the clip of Mark Kelly talking about the immigration proposal that the Biden team had earlier this year. That was also supported by Senators Lankford and I believe Sinema, which was supposed to give these illegal immigrants that were, caught interviews that if they failed, they would be sent back to the country that they were from, and the border would be closed after, I believe it was 500,000 to 800,000 plus people showed up. Now, this proposal, as I mentioned when I did my video on Anna Paulina Luna, was supported by some Democrats, a little bit of Republicans, but it was kiboshed because Trump and Mike Johnson did not want Biden to get a legislative victory on immigration ahead of the presidential election, because they knew that if they allowed him to be seen as doing something to solve this issue, they would, not be able to run and say, oh, the Democrats are doing nothing about the border. As one person told me, politicians get off on issues not being solved because they can use it to run in further campaigns. And that's exactly what the Republicans are doing with immigration. They don't want the Democrats to be able to do anything, which is why they were against that proposal. And don't you just love it when you hear, because I've explained this before, Harris as VP has no executive powers. So when you have Blackburn, and she's not the first one to say this, saying, you've been vice president for over 1,000 days. Why haven't you done these things? Or it's like, we're not talking about President Harris running for re-election in 2028. We're talking about a person who has the ability to break a tie in the Senate and will become president if the incumbent president passes away. That's it. So I just find it so tacky, because you know damn well, if let's say Trump were to win this time around and Vance became VP, and then Democrats attacked him for not doing, whatever proposals that he was putting out in 2028, you would see Republicans going, well, Vance can't do anything. Vance isn't, he's vice president, but he's not president, so he doesn't have any powers. But they don't acknowledge their hyper partisanship that causes them to just, have that ridiculous double standards. Now, the other part of this, to wrap it up, is where she mentions that she believes Harris will become less popular with people once they find out what her positions are. They're so out of the mainstream. Again, we've had polling that shows most people support Roe v. Wade. We've had polling that shows people are not as rigid about illegal immigrants. Like, you're not going to see people just be like, oh yeah, dreamers, these children who've been here since they were babies, right? That are, as American as you or I, because they literally have no memory of being from the country that they're from. Oh yeah, send them back. You don't see that with public polling on these issues. Really, the only chance Republicans have, if they're trying to mount a truly issue-based campaign to say that we have a majority of people on our side, is to fearmonger about the economy and about the border. That's it. And I don't think it's going to be enough. We've seen polling that's showing Harris is climbing, that, swapping Biden out with her is benefiting the Democrats. Again, I'm not saying she's going to win. Anything can happen. There's still several months left, but Blackburn is really out of her mind if she thinks that people are just so unaware of what Harris actually stands for. There are a lot of people who just are sick of Trump. This is the third damn election where he's been your party's nominee. And at this point, he's pretty well defined. People who like him are going to vote for him. People who are sick of him are not going to vote for him. So, you can sit there and call Harris a socialist and, oh, she's going to take away our private insurance, even though she's not. Oh, she's going to defund ICE, even though she's not. if enough people know that you're not telling the truth or actually are supporting of those ideas, you guys are not exactly going to pull out a victory in November. So I think Blackburn's prediction is goofy, uh, and I was thinking about this. I said, how crazy is it that the most conservative senator is the June like someone who is just now finishing their first term. Like like I thought about it, I said her and Harris were in the Senate together for just 2 years, and one was known as the most liberal, right? According to votes, not that Harris is more liberal than Sanders, for example, and the other one was known as the most conservative. And it's like that's really interesting. Like these first term senators just carved out like the furthest of lanes for themselves with their votes. But unlike Harris, who I do think is a chameleon in terms of just, I don't believe she's some, bleeding heart, socialist, progressive, any of that. I do think Blackburn is as right wing as they get, and if Trump gets another term, she will be one of his top people. She might not get a cabinet job, but you can be assured any major issue, whether it's another tax cut that mostly goes to rich people or trying to deport every damn person that's not from here originally, she will be there side by side with her master. Uh, God, it's a disturbing thought.